Hoffman, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed Live. We are super excited to have you joining us today, whether you're joining us from anywhere around the globe or if you're joining us via Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, somewhere else. We're super excited to have you joining us today. And as always, around this time of the month, we are going to be starting with the news updates. That will be the focus of this show. But in the meantime, throughout the show, if you have any questions, comments, you want to let us know where you're streaming from or what you like, what you're excited about, what you'd like to see next on Data Exposed, we'd love to have you interact with us. You can head over to Learn TV or just post your questions or comments from wherever you're streaming from today. So with that, let's get right into it. Today we have an exciting show lined up, some great guests, some demos, some news, some updates about in-person and virtual events. So you'll definitely want to stick around. As always, this live stream has an accompanying blog. So everything you see will have references and details in the news update blog, which is now live. Let me see if I can grab that for you. So at any point today or after the show or even next month, you can always head to ak.ms/news update to get the latest month's news update. So this current update we're going to cover covers June and all of July. So far, we took a week delay because of the 4th of July. All right. Oh, it looks like we have someone joining in from Bangladesh. Exciting to have you here. It's kind of late over there. We're glad you're tuning in. So let's get right into some product updates. Of course, we like to start with some of the big announcements. And in this case, we're going to start with the GA or generally available announcements. And a couple exciting ones this time around. One is name replicas for hyperscale. For those that have been following the show or following some of the things that I do, this is one I've been excited about for a very long time. So this essentially allows you to create up to 30 readable replicas given their own name for Azure SQL Database Hyperscale. These are read scale on the fly replicas. So they take just a couple minutes to create and they can be a different number of vCores than your primary. So if you need a 80 vCore replica for some heavy analytics, or you just need 2 vCore to handle some read-only workloads, like you can do that. You can scale these up, down, delete them, recreate them on the fly. So that's an exciting one to become generally available. Similar on that front is georeplication and auto failover groups. This is something that's been available in Azure SQL Database for some time. We're closing that gap with Hyperscale. It's very exciting that both of these things are entering the general availability state. We also have a new video. This isn't exactly like a big GA announcement, but it is a super exciting video. Some of you have been hearing about SQL Ledger. This is how we're bringing the power of blockchain to Azure SQL Database for no extra cost to your existing databases, whatever you need. This centralized approach to blockchain. So we have a new customer video in a bit. We're going to actually attempt to play that. We'll see how successful that goes. That's the GA front. On the preview front, there's also some interesting things going on. Believe it or not, we have an update for SQL Server 2016. Yes, you heard that correctly. What we're doing is we're expanding Azure SQL Managed Instance link capabilities to SQL Server 2016. So this is going to enable you to connect a SQL Server 2016 instance to Azure SQL Managed Instance and use that for read-only workloads or, in disaster recovery situations, a way to fail over to the cloud, or maybe even a way to just migrate from SQL Server 2016 to Azure. So that's an exciting one in public preview today. We also announced in Azure SQL Database 2 things. One is new built-in server level roles. These built-in server level roles are fixed, meaning they can't be changed. But the kind of intent behind them is that we're making it easier. So if you remember with Azure SQL Database, a lot of the permissions cannot be controlled at the server level since it's just a logical server. But these new server level roles are going to help you kind of get around that and mitigate that, especially in a case where you have a lot of databases in one logical server, and you want to have some centralized way of managing that for specific roles. And fun fact about this is also going to land in SQL Server 2022. Also, earlier in June, we announced Microsoft Purview access policies for Azure SQL Database in public preview. So this new capability is going to allow you to author access policies directly from Microsoft Purview and then apply them to Azure SQL Database at like individual level or also at scale. So a lot of exciting stuff happening in the Azure SQL space. I'm going to take a pause and we're going to try to watch this video. I see John Askew saying nice new Ledger customer video. Yeah, let's see if we can get it to play. So let me pull that up and let's take a look.
Lenovo's shipped more than 500 million PCs, and it makes 3 new devices every second. The company wants to make sure that each one reaches its user in precisely the condition and configuration that it left the factory. Maintaining superior levels of computer security is an increasingly challenging task. Since creating its ThinkShield brand in 2018, Lenovo has been examining where it can control potential security gaps related to its device manufacturing and supply chain. We want to be able to show customers that a device hasn't been tampered with and is trustworthy before they bring it into their environment. We want to attest to the device integrity, even down to system levels that require administrator access. To maintain its solid trust relationship with its customers, Lenovo wanted a reliable third party to provide device attestation capabilities. We found an ideal device tracking and attestation tool in Ledger and Azure SQL Database, and we use the capability to create our trusted supply chain solution. The Ledger feature enables business partners to establish trust by verifying the integrity of centrally managed data. Ledger eliminates the additional cost, complexity, and performance overhead of decentralized blockchain technology while providing many of its benefits in a fully managed SQL environment. Blockchain is also very resource intensive, which goes against our sustainability goals. It does not have great performance, and it is vulnerable to majority attacks. We found the Ledger technology to be very easy to use. It was just a matter of ticking a box to create a Ledger database with integrity protection enabled. With Ledger, we were able to get both integrity protection and the performance of a relational database. Using a fully managed service like Azure SQL Database also lowers the administrative burden over an on-premises solution. Trusted Supply Chain documents the exact state of 32 different device parameters when a computer leaves the manufacturing plant and uploads the data to Ledger tables in Azure SQL Database, where it's processed and stored. When a customer receives a device, they run a data verification program on it and compare the results to what was collected when the device was shipped, giving a very granular view of any discrepancies. With Azure SQL Database Ledger, Lenovo can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that no one has modified a computer's data, not even Lenovo itself. Moving forward, all new Lenovo computers will be tracked in Trusted Supply Chain. Ledger and Azure SQL Database is a very important building block of our zero trust approach moving forward at all levels: data, software, and hardware. We're considering extending it to other high security use cases like continuous firmware monitoring, parts provenance, sustainability, and tracking tax payments and duty transactions. We want to provide end-to-end integrity and transparency to our customers.
Okay, hopefully that worked. If it didn't work, or if you want to see the video again, you can go ahead and head over to our blog. We'll put a link to the full customer story where you can also learn more about the customer and also see the video, share the video with your friends, that sort of thing. Just a quick programming update. We are having a couple issues with Learn TV. So if you are having issues, then go ahead and head over to our YouTube stream, and hopefully you'll be able to see that there. So a couple comments that the video was a little bit choppy, so apologies for that. Go to the blog, watch the video. I promise it's worth it, and probably a lot better experience when you're not dealing with the limitations of my bandwidth. But before we move on, we have lots more updates to come. I wanted to highlight some of the exciting places that people are joining us from. People from India, Nigeria, Japan, South Africa, people all over the world are tuning in. So that's really exciting. Even if you're watching this not live, we're excited to have you tuning in and getting the latest news. So let me just go ahead and get back to the announcements, which is what you really came here for, not to see choppy videos. Anyways, one big announcement this happened this week, I think it was actually yesterday, is the SQL Server 2012 end of support. So most of you are familiar. We do this every 10 years. We support it for 10 years. So now that we are in 2022, we are reaching end of support for 2012. So if you are running SQL Server 2012 today, you basically have 4 options. So the first option is you can migrate to Azure Virtual Machines. You can use something called Azure Site Recovery to essentially fail over if your SQL Server is running in a VM, you can fail over to a SQL Server and Azure Virtual Machine. This is going to enable you to keep running SQL Server 2012 with 3 years of extended security updates for free, so that you can continue to use this as you figure out what you're going to do after those 3 years. Hopefully, upgrade or move to Azure. Some of the other options you have is you can move to Azure SQL Managed Instance. You can upgrade to SQL Server 2019, and later this year, SQL Server 2022, when SQL Server 2022 becomes generally available. Or finally, you can sign up for extended security updates using Azure Arc. So this is a new one. There is a blog about this that we reference in our blog. So if you want to learn about some of those details, you can check that out. The next thing we're going to do is, looks like a couple more folks are saying where they're streaming from. We got some people in the US from New York and from Texas. Hopefully you're staying cool down there in Texas. But we're going to move right along and talk about some of the other database updates. So I know this might be a little small. Let me give you guys some more space to see it. A lot of updates in the Azure Cosmos DB space. We're actually going to bring on someone from the Cosmos DB team to talk about this first one. A couple of the things that stood out to me, one is the public preview of the continuous backup enhancements in Azure Cosmos DB. This is really important for a lot of customers, so you might be interested in learning more about that one. Also, there were query engine improvements for the SQL API if you're using that one. And the other really exciting one to me was on the MongoDB API front, and that is a new Azure Data Studio MongoDB extension for Azure Cosmos DB. So now you can connect to MongoDB running in Azure Cosmos DB from Azure Data Studio. So that's pretty exciting. On the open source front, Azure Database for PostgreSQL Hyperscale, some of you know this as Citus. We recently announced the general availability for minor Postgres versions, which is a really exciting thing because people want to stick to the version that they're using and be able to choose that and have granularity there. And then the last one, you can see I clicked on this one. I guess it didn't update, but this is around the Azure Advisor support. So I went and grabbed a screenshot from this. It's pretty cool. Basically, when you go to the overview tab of a database, sometimes you get recommendations around performance or security or other things. So you can get those here, and you can also get them all up, I believe, at like a subscription level. So this is something to definitely consider checking out. And now, as I promised, I'm going to bring up Meredith Moore, who is a PM on the Azure Cosmos DB team, to tell us a little more about this new experience. Hey, Meredith, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Anna. Hey, everyone watching, and hello to everyone who will be watching on demand. So I'm here to share some news about Try Cosmos DB. In case you're not familiar with it, it's our free, commitment-free offering. If you want to try out Cosmos DB, you can do this absolutely free for 30 days. You have the option to extend for 24 hours. If you want to keep using it, you can start over. We also have an option for you to upgrade when you're ready to get into that production environment. And again, there's no commitment here. So whether you have an Azure subscription or not, you can use this experience. It's really perfect. If you want to kick the tires, you have that hobby app that you want to build. Maybe you're about to start a hackathon project. You're not really ready to pay for anything yet. Not sure how everything's going to play out in the future. And that's pretty common. We really want to try before we buy. So this try experience has been available for quite some time, but I wanted to share with you some of the updates. We have a new look and feel. We launched a new quick start for our SQL API. And one of our newest features for our SQL API right now is our upgrade from your sandbox into production. So when you upgrade, you can also take advantage of that free tier discount. So you'll get the 400 RU's provision throughput and the 5 GB storage each month for the lifetime of your account. So pretty good there. I thought I would, give you a tour and kind of show you how to get started with Cosmos DB using some sample data in just a couple minutes. So that sound all right with you?
I think that sounds great. Hey, there was a quick question before you get into the demo. I think you might have answered it, but they asked, is there a size limit on the free Cosmos DB tier?
So right now we do have a limit up to about 3,000 RU throughput, but that can change depending how things go. But there aren't any really limitations on how you can use Cosmos DB. You'll just get started in a minute, and then you can go and use it.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I think that answered their question. I love this idea of upgrading from sandbox to production, because when my hobby app, really makes it big, and I expect that, it probably won't, but if it does, I don't have to like redo anything or migrate. I can just kind of upgrade to production. But
absolutely, you can grow with Cosmos DB.
Sure. Love it. Okay, let's take a look.
All right, so we have several APIs that you can choose from. This is our Try Cosmos DB webpage. I'm going to get started with our core API. And right here, just to get started, you only need to sign in with your Microsoft account. So that's your Live ID, your Xbox. You can even use your Gmail. If you don't have a Microsoft account, all you'll need to do is to just sign up with your email address, create a password. It takes seconds. You'll be prompted to do it immediately. Or you could just sign in with GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And so it's already detecting my Microsoft account. So here we go. That was seconds, and your account's all ready to go. So we can get started just going right into the portal and start using Azure Cosmos DB. So as you saw, there was no credit card, no really long sign up, no commitment. So here I've landed in Data Explorer, and I have a couple options here to get started. If I want to go through a tutorial and start with some sample data, maybe I want to get started on my own and create a container, or maybe I'm ready to connect to my app right away. You can also get started with some of our learning resources and our modules. But I thought we'd get started with Quick Start. So right now, this tour is going to help you to create a database with a container and load it up with some sample data so you can play around to get started. I know that learning new tools can be challenging, and we want to make this easy for you. So right here, I'm going to create a sample database. I'm naming it sample DB. I'm setting my throughput, naming my container here, and then I'm setting my partition key. So all of this, when you go through it on your own, it'll be very familiar. And here, just in a minute, we'll have our database created with our container. So this is your moment to take a deep breath, to recenter. Have to add a little bit of mindfulness into this session.
I love it. We all could use that these days. Okay, this is really cool though. As just processing this, because I actually haven't seen this before. I love how it gives you little, hey, this is what you're doing. It's very self-explanatory to kind of figure out what you're doing, and you don't have to pick a gazillion options just to deploy the thing.
Yeah. So right away, I can see my items are here. I've got my sample DB, my container. I can start working with my data by opening items. And if I want to add any additional filters to the data, here's where I do it. Maybe I want to add some more data. I could do this here by uploading a JSON. Maybe I'm ready to run a query. I can also do this by using the edit, the filter option that we just showed. If I want to adjust my throughput at any point, this is where I'm going to do it. And then, hey, maybe I want to visualize my data. I want to create an interactive document. I can do that here with a notebook. So now that I've completed the tour, we have an option to share some feedback. If there's anything that you want to see to help you get started, you can share your feedback here. So maybe I want to get started with a sample app, or I'm ready to connect to my own application. I can do that here. Downloading a sample app. You can see I have many languages to choose from, and I can get started using Cosmos DB in that way. And so lastly, once I've been up and running and when I'm ready and I feel like I want to move into production, I have an option to upgrade my account. And I also wanted to share that our quick starts for our sample apps are available in our quick start tab. We also have the option to upgrade available here. You'll see it in overview as well. So all I want to do is just click over here to upgrade, and I will sign in and create my own Azure account and then create a Cosmos DB account. Maybe I already have an Azure account. I just need to create my Cosmos DB account, collect my connection string, and then move my data. So that was about probably less than 5 minutes. You're up and running with Cosmos DB using some sample data. You can connect to your app. You can upgrade and move everything over into production. Easy peasy. So look forward to hearing your comments and your feedback, and hope you enjoy this experience.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Meredith. I think it's really exciting to see this. Again, I hadn't seen it before, but it was very easy to follow along, and I feel like I could do this. So I really appreciate you coming on, showing us this great demo, and we'll have to have you back on sometime soon to share other Cosmos DB updates.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. All right. We are going to continue moving along. Next in our show, after we talk about some of the big updates, we go into the blogs and videos. There's a lot of things that land in blogs and videos from an updates perspective that might not land in the more formal updates section. The first thing I wanted to do is touch on some of the episodes of Data Exposed. So of course, if you're watching this, you've heard of Data Exposed because we're streaming on Data Exposed right now. But we also have episodes that we release on Thursdays, and once a month we release an MVP episode on a Tuesday. But you can see we've got a new series, actually, the SQL Insider series. This is where we're taking members of the Microsoft field who work directly with customers on these really deep, complex engagements. And we're bringing them in to share some information on automation, migrating, exporting data. So there's a lot in here. And you'll also see some other episodes like the build announcements. If you missed this one, this is a great one to check in on. We'll get to the 7 tips for the SQL developer in a bit. Apart from our recorded episodes, as you know, we also have live episodes. I just called out a couple that are still some of my favorite, even though some of them feel like they're a bit outdated last year. But we did this Welcome to SQL Server 2022 live, which was actually really amazing. If you want to get the gist of what's going on in SQL Server 22 and our vision, that's a great place to start. I also have to call out this May 4th Star Wars themed episode, which was a ton of fun. People came in costumes. We talked about the news. We talked about a lot of things. So please check that out as well if you're interested. And that's what's been going on in Data Exposed. Next, we're going to go through the blogs. Now, for those of you who haven't seen this segment before, you may or may not know how many blogs that actually get posted in a bunch of different places. So my goal is to try to bring all the ones you might care about together and give you a recap of anything I found super exciting. So the first one is the Azure blog. This is the highest level. This is usually done by like CVPs and executives. There were a couple interesting ones I wanted to call out. Firstly, monthly, there's a Microsoft cost management updates. So the June one was released, and this is great if you are managing the cost for your subscription or your organization. Sometimes there are things related to databases in here, but just generally, I feel like it's a good thing to keep tabs on. The second one I found really interesting. This is a video series called Inside Azure for IT, run by the VP of Compute at Microsoft. And she has 3 videos that came out recently that I found really interesting. That's in this box over here. Some about jellyfish pictures and how they do that with animation using Azure. One about NASA's JPL and how they're using this to do quantum computing and complex scheduling. And then finally, this one I was a little confused about because I'm not exactly aware of self-flying air taxis. But nonetheless, it was a very cool video. And it shows off how, people and customers are using Azure in a very entertaining and aesthetically pleasing way. So something you might consider checking out. Azure Health Data Services, if you are in that space, it's good to keep tabs on what's going on here. A lot of databases back the Azure Health Data Services. So I just thought I'd throw that out there if anyone's in the health space. And then the last one is these new helpful guides. So I included one of them here, but basically it's called the Azure Skills Navigator, and you can pick what you want to do. Do you want to be a solution architect? Do you want to be a data engineer? And then it kind of takes you on this journey of how to get the skills that you need. All right, so moving along, we're going to get a little bit more specific. Actually, Peter Carlin, our CVP of Azure Databases, published 2 blogs this month on the Azure blog. And one of them was about, the performance studies that we've been doing for SQL Server and Azure Virtual Machine, as well as Azure SQL Managed Instance. So right now, what I have on the screen is a benchmark study by a company called Principled Technology, where they compared SQL Managed Instance to SQL Server on AWS RDS across 3 different workloads. So that's what you're kind of seeing here, those 3 different workloads. And as you can see, SQL Managed Instance emerged as a leader across each of these with up to 5 times faster performance and while costing up to 93% less. Now, there are some stars and details related to the study, so we will put a link in the blog if you want to read more about it, but that was pretty good, pretty cool to see. Similarly, there was another study done by GigaOM. So again, these are all third parties. They're not Microsoft doing these studies. And this was comparing SQL Server running on Azure VMs to SQL Server running on AWS EC2 instances across both a mix of transactional and analytical workloads. And SQL Server came out on top with 42%, up to 42% faster TPS or transactions per second, while costing up to 31% less than AWS EC2. So I think the message that Peter is trying to get across with these studies and this blog is, hey, your SQL Server data belongs on Azure. He also had a blog about Azure Arc and multi-cloud. So if your company is considering hybrid or is in a hybrid state today or multi-cloud state, it would be great. You might be interested to see not only where we are and where we've come, how far we've come, but also kind of the vision from Peter himself. All right, moving right along to the SQL Server blog. couple things here that we've already talked about, but I did want to highlight a couple things that were interesting. So this first couple set of screenshots is related to the improved scalability in SQL Server 2022 with buffer pool parallel scan. Now, I am not an expert in this space, so I'm not going to try to recreate the blog from David Pless and explain it all to you. Very interesting read. A couple things I took away from this. So this is an example of creating a new database with 2 terabytes of memory, with 1.84 of those devoted to the SQL Server buffer pool. Now, if you look, creating a database on SQL Server 2019 took about 17 seconds, and on SQL Server 2022 took about 1 second. And then the other test that they did to kind of see how this affects performance is David wanted to simulate a database failover. So on SQL Server 2019, they basically shut it offline and then brought it back online. It took over 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And on SQL Server 2022, it took just over 28 seconds. So I think the general takeaway here is that we're always investing in SQL Server 2022 or the next version to just make it faster without a bunch of effort from your side. So definitely go read that, get all the details on how this thing works. Don't just take my word for it. Also, a couple new things in the tools space, which I wanted to highlight. Okay, so let me just go through the things I found really exciting. The first was in Azure Data Studio, you can now back up and restore to a URL for Azure SQL Managed Instance. Previously, this was not available. We also introduced plan comparison in Azure Data Studio, so you can view 2 plans side by side. And I didn't include all the screenshots here, but there are actually some GIFs and screenshots. We also announced Table Designer updates and PowerShell extension updates. And we talked about the link feature for SQL Server 2016, also available for 2019 and 2022, but SSMS 18.12 also includes updates to support this link feature capability. Of course, if you're working on 2019 or later, we would recommend you move to SSMS 19 or later, but this is available in 18 now as well. Okay, a couple other things. Maybe you've been hearing about Azure functions with SQL binding. So this is basically making it much easier to connect your data to an Azure function. So we added that capability in Azure Data Studio. Also in Azure Data Studio, we enabled the ability to connect to Power BI data marts from Azure Data Studio, as well as .NET Interactive Notebooks. Switching to SSMS for just a moment, we announced SSMS 19 Preview 2. Again, like I mentioned, if you are working with SQL Server 2022, we do recommend that you use SSMS 19. I mentioned .NET Interactive Notebooks, but notebooks are great, and now you can do all sorts of languages right from Azure Data Studio and connect directly to local or your database itself. All right, that was a lot. Lots in the tools space. Now, I came to look at the SQL Server Tech Community blogs and was like, what is happening? Okay, so what happened was an authenticated, we found this vulnerability basically, and you can read all about the vulnerability in SQL Server, where an authenticated attacker could affect SQL Server memory when executing some specially crafted query using a partition against a column for index. So kind of a very specific scenario. Definitely go read about the vulnerability. But if you're using any of these versions of SQL Server, you just want to make sure you get the latest cumulative update, which addresses this vulnerability. There were also a lot of other blogs in the SQL Server space. I'm not going to go through all of these. A couple that I found exciting was the new SCOM management packs for RS, AS, and SQL Server. Also running the SQL best practices assessment at scale. This used to be something you kind of ran one at a time, at least from my understanding. I was running them one at a time, but now you can do this more at scale. And, oh yeah, this other big one. For all the, let me go back to it. For all the Linux users, SQL Server 2022 public preview is also now available on Linux. From the Azure SQL tech community, and bear with me, I know there's a lot of blogs that we're talking about. A lot of these are updates that we've already talked about. So whenever we have a big update, usually there's an accompanying blog. One exciting thing, this top one here, restoring a SQL managed instance database backup to SQL Server 2022. So this means if you're using the link capability in Azure SQL managed instance, not only can you fail over, so you can fail over from SQL Server 2022 to Azure SQL Managed Instance, but this is giving you a way to restore that backup on Azure SQL Managed Instance back to SQL Server 2022. So this is a pretty exciting announcement. This is in private preview. There are some limitations. So if this is something you're interested in, please go read the blog so you can understand what those limitations are and why they are the way that they are. Let's see, anything else to call out here? Oh, one other thing here, similar to the Azure Cosmos DB create experience, they're making that a lot better. We're also investing in the Azure SQL database space. So this is an Azure SQL database. We've added this getting started blade, and in the getting started blade, it will give you some insights on how to do the basic things you need to do to get started. So configuring access, like making sure you have the right firewall rules or network access, connecting, so getting your connection strings, and developing either in Azure Data Studio or Visual Studio Code. Now, we talked a lot about some of the tooling updates. There are also tooling updates on the migration front. And for that, I'm going to bring on Neel Ball, PM, doing a lot in the migration space to tell us a little bit more about it. So let me bring up Neel. Hey, Neel, thanks so much for joining us. How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. And hi, everyone. I know people have joined from different part of the world. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited to have you on. And, I won't ramble on. I'd just love to understand like what's new and what do you have for us today?
Hey, yeah. So this time the focus is on the Sybase or SAP Adaptive Server Enterprise AAC. It's popularly like we call it Sybase. So what we found is we already have a tool, SQL Server Migration Assistant for Sybase. And in any general migration, it starts with assessment, conversion, and then migration. And a lot of enterprise customers and also a lot of like small and medium customers who have big databases like 500 gig, 1 terabyte, or multi terabyte databases, they were having challenges migrating or moving the data from Sybase to SQL as a part of migration. And sometimes it used to take like 18 hours or 20 hours and so on, and using SSMA. And what we found is we have to address this scenario. And what we did was we evaluated what are the various products available. And we found, why don't we use Azure Data Factory? And behind the scene, customers can go ahead and create certain pipelines. It will go ahead, create certain pipelines, and do an at scale migration. So I'm going to give you a quick demo on this whole migrate data at scale.
Awesome.
So,
Cool.
so if you look at, we have this new option here. So let me zoom in. It's migrate data at scale, and what you have to do is you first need to connect to your Sybase and SQL Server. So Sybase is going to act as your source, and SQL Server is going to act as a target. So you choose the database which you want to migrate, and click on migrate data at scale. So because we are going to use Azure Data Factory behind the scenes, so you need to have a valid Azure subscription and an Azure Active Directory account. So I'm going to use my Microsoft Active Directory account and connect, and it will go ahead and authenticate my account. Once it authenticates the account, you need to select the right tenant and right subscription where the whole at-scale data movement will take place. And I'll just go ahead the one which I've already selected. Now, like for any Azure resource, you need resource group. You need to create a data factory. So this tool will go ahead and create a data factory behind the scene. So if you already have a data factory, so you can go ahead and select from the list, or you have the new option to create the data factory in the resource group. So I've already selected a resource group and data factory, ADF demo 1 Neel, and I'm going to use this for demo. So then you go next. Now when you try to migrate data, or when you try to connect to a data source which is on premise or inside a virtual network, you need integration runtime. Integration runtime acts as a gateway which allows you to connect to anything which is inside a virtual network, or anything which is inside on your on premise, because you are bringing the data to Azure, or you are bringing the data on a Azure SQL VM. So what you do is you have to go ahead and use the integration runtime. Again, you can go ahead and select the already which you might have created previously, or you have a new option. And when you click on a new, it goes ahead, downloads the integration runtime package, install on that machine where you are trying to run SSMA, and you have to provide an authentication key, and that also we go ahead and provide. Uh, it will be auto-populated for you. Uh, Once you go finish all these parameters, next is to connecting to the source. So let me connect to the source, which is the Sybase AC, and then you have to connect to the target. So I'm going to choose a user. It just goes ahead and authenticates the source and target. And the reason is, in the data factory pipeline, we have to create a linked services, and that's how we go ahead and pass these credentials. Now, the final is to do this migration, you need to give a migration name. So I'm going to give is demo test one. So you need to provide a unique migration name and click on finish. When you click on finish, you would see that we give the progress. So it's going to creating some link services, creating certain data sets. Then it goes ahead and runs the Azure Data Factory pipeline. So you have a continuous progress where you can go ahead and understand, and if there are any failures, it will go ahead and show those failures, intermediate failures as well. And once the pipeline is created, there will be a monitoring link. So if you want to monitor the pipeline, we give you a link, and when you click on that link, it takes you to the data factory page, and from there you can do the live monitoring of this particular pipeline, data migration pipeline. It actually goes through and does parallel data load, so it's trying to save some time. So what we have seen is kind of customer can save at least 3 to 4 times time save by using this whole new approach, instead of using the usual SSMA migration. So that's the capability which we have introduced now. We will be adding more and more features and more capabilities in the near releases. Over to you, Anna. If you have, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Neel. That was really cool. So if folks want to start using this, do they just need to upgrade to the latest version of SSMA?
Yes, so you need to be on the SSMA version 9.0. So once you go ahead and upgrade or do a fresh download, and you will have this in the Sybase version of SSMA. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Neel. One other question I had, like this was Sybase to SQL. What if you're coming from Oracle?
Yeah, so we are working on it. So in a very like in a quarter's time, you will have we will have Oracle to SQL as well as MySQL to SQL feature landing very shortly. So in a couple of months, we will have this capability as well.
Okay, cool. So in a couple months, we'll have you back on. So hopefully you can show us what else is new.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Neel.
Thank-
All right, awesome. That's always cool to see. It's great to see all the investments we're making in making migrations from wherever to SQL and Azure as easy as possible, as much as we can. A couple more blogs I wanted to touch base on before we get into some more guests and demos. Is Azure SQL Devs Corner. Maybe you heard about some of the JSON investments, enhancements that have come. We have had some level of support for JSON, but we are continuing to expand on that because we see how much JSON is being used. So these enhancements, when you go read them, they're coming in SQL Server 2022. They're in CTP 2.0 today, but they will soon be coming to Azure SQL Database and Azure SQL Managed Instance as well. Now, the last blog that I touch on is the Azure Database Support blog. And you can see this month there were so many. So this is just page 1 and this is page 2. Most of these are around, as you'll see, these lessons learned hands-on labs. So if you want to get hands-on and get experience from our support experts at Microsoft, these are some great ways to do that. And these are very common scenarios. For example, lesson learned 216, how redirect connection policy type works. These are all great things to understand if you're working with Azure SQL database or managed instance or elastic pools. There were also a couple things that not part of the hands-on lab. So like best practices for connecting upper and lower functions, DNS resolution, which some people might face, and a couple things around restoring and point-in-time restore. Definitely check those out. I know there's a lot. There's a lot of great things in the Azure Database Support blog itself, so you can always use search capabilities to kind of find something you might be trying to troubleshoot yourself. Now, with that being said, we are going to switch over and bring up another guest. I'm going to bring up Sunetra. Hi, Sunetra. And Sunetra is going to tell us about something that just launched called Microsoft Purview Data Estate Insights. And I know nothing about this, so just so excited to have you on and learn from you.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to present. We are very excited to talk about Microsoft Purview Data Estate Insights, and I am Sunetra, Senior Product Manager for the new app. Let me start with giving a quick overview of what is Microsoft Purview. It's our unified hybrid platform for data governance. Essentially, customers bring in all their data connected through various diverse connectors that we have in the product so that we can learn about your data estate. And once we have the metadata in our data map, which is scanned and annotated automatically, it builds up your catalog for auto discovery. Data consumers can go and discover what assets exist in their data estate. And for the CDO personas, the chief data officers, the data stewards, and everybody who is in the data governance stakeholder relationship, get to consume data estate insights. That is the newest app. We just went GA on the 1st of July, and I'm very excited to talk about the key features of this app. Deep diving a bit more, who are the key personas of Data Estate Insights app? Like I was mentioning, the Chief Data Officer is our main persona, who is responsible and accountable for governance of the data while also monetizing the data. He is answerable to a board of directors on whether the risks are managed while the data is also exposed adequately with the right protection and governance to the data consumers. And in his team, there are data stewards and data curators to help put those high-level vision into actionable insights and action. And that's where we come in with data estate insights. What you see on the screen is Microsoft Purview. You land on the main page. This is where you can actually go search or browse on all your data estate. You can actually look at what exactly exists in Microsoft Purview. Here are a bunch of tables, assets, all sorts of information that we help you organize by objects and collections. And once you have understood what exactly you're looking for, you can actually go ahead and ask for access. So this is just the search experience, but Thinking about stewardship and what data stewards and CDOs care about is looking at a summarized view of their data estate. And so when they come into insights, they are able to see a catalog of very critical dimensions and KPIs that can help them govern better in their companies. We start off with data stewardship that helps our customers talk about, understand asset curation, ownership, and what's the adoption of their catalog. We give very key KPIs and scorecards that they can actually drill deeper by following the link and actually looking at the data that needs to be curated or needs to be you need to close a gap on your data. Thereafter, there are a bunch of other graphs to help you dissect your data better. You can even go into detail, click on a specific collection. It will give you all the assets within that collection, along with very critical information necessary for your data governance. You can even go ahead and hit export, which will help you quickly get a CSV file that you can then work off of offline if you need to, or your data owners can actually come in and curate this data right from insights, because that's we want to make it as interactive for you, as useful for you as possible, without having to worry about taking it offline and then bringing it online. So the other things that we offer is, of course, we want to show you all your data estate, the way you want to view it, by sensitive data, by classifications. You can pick a certain classification and see what sort of data you have, by collection, which is our way of grouping your assets. Similarly, you can go in, view details. You can look at your source types and do so much more with this out of the box insights. We walk you through a lot more, which I'll probably come in again and talk through a lot more details, but very excited for customers to try it out and give us feedback.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sunetra. This was really cool to see. I hadn't seen this myself, but I could see how valuable it is to kind of have this separated out a little bit by persona. And I just love how easy it is, how interactive it is to get up and using, how intuitive it is to use it and get the insights that you need. So thanks so much for coming on the show. We'll put some links in our blog so folks can learn more.
Thank you.
Awesome. Moving right along, I'm going to bring up Marisa to tell us a little bit more about what's coming as far as events go. So Marisa, thanks so much for coming on.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me again. So summer has certainly not slowed us down. We're still out and about and going to conferences, and we're actually I think it's next week. I know you'll pull up the dates. Here we go. Okay, so next week, July 19th, we have Microsoft Inspire, and that's kind of where we get our partner community to come together and learn from Microsoft leaders. So that's an exciting one. And August 8th through 12th, we will be in Redmond. I know you'll be there, and I'll be there, and Buck Ward, Buck Woody and Bob Ward. Woo, they would be upset if they heard that one. They'll be there. Davide Mari, Drew will also be there, and we are presenting on several different VS Live sessions. We also have a table topics lunch where I know you and a few others will have lunches with attendees there and can kind of deep dive into topics. Our CVP of Azure Data Services, Peter Carlin, he will be giving a keynote at that conference. And we'll also be at all the mix and mingles and things at this conference. So we're really looking forward to getting back to Redmond and being on campus and having this event with the live crew. And then in September, we are another big sponsor of DPS Data Platform Summit, and this will be a virtual conference. And we have pre-cons. We have about, I think we're at 73 sessions right now. So we have a huge presence at this conference. We have a WIP panel that I know Anna will be on, and a few others focus groups. So look forward to that and register if you haven't already. That will be exciting one. As always, we have this live show every month. We're actually broadcasting this show live next month when we are on campus. So that will be fun, and we'll have special guests in. And for me, it's really cool because it'll be the first time I'm in studio and get to see the studio since this has all started. So I'm excited to do that one. And then as always as well, every Thursday we launch the new Data Exposed episodes. And I think
awesome.
That's what I have. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Marisa. And yeah, likewise, it's going to be so exciting to be back in the studio. I haven't been in the studio since early 2020 or 2019. Yeah. So yeah.
And it'll be my first, so it'll be really cool.
Yeah, and we won't be using StreamYard. We'll actually be having like Bob and Buck and Davide and Marisa, people come on stage and you'll be next to us. So it'll be a lot of fun. And that'll be on August 10th.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Marisa.
Thanks.
All right. Just a couple more things as we wrap up our show. I hope you all have had a nice time, learned a lot. First, I have my Microsoft Learn module of the month. So let me show you all this one. Since we talked about Cosmos DB today, I thought you all might be interested in learning a little bit more about it, along with trying out the free 30-day experience. So this module basically has the ability for you to learn about the different Cosmos DB APIs and also get hands-on with the Cosmos DB API. So I feel like this is a great place to start if you're just getting started with Cosmos DB. And then, as always, I have something called my pick of the month. This month, I picked the 7 tips in 7 minutes for the SQL Developer MVP edition episode of Data Exposed. And I just want to show you all, like, it's not just me saying that this video is awesome. Like, we've gotten a ton of views, almost 500 likes, and 32 comments, people saying, like, brilliant tips, really helpful, amazing, I love it, fantastic. Someone even said they commented, like, twice. This last tip is solid gold. Tip 7 changed my world. Like, you'd really want to check this out, because personally, like, the whole time of this video, I was like, wait, what? You can do that? I had no idea. So if you use SSMS in any capacity, like, go watch this video. Also notice that someone's joining us from LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us. Streaming to LinkedIn is relatively new for us, so we're glad it's useful. And that's pretty much our show. Final thing to keep in mind is everything you saw today is going to be in the blog. So it's already in the blog. The blog is live. You can go to aka.ms/news update and get links to everything you saw today, and maybe even some more insights or detailed insights of something you might have missed. And again, we'll be back in person, but still live streaming, but everyone on the show will be in person. August 10th, as Marisa mentioned, it's going to be a lot of fun. So please tune in. And if you like this episode, go ahead, give it a like, subscribe to our channel, check out Data Exposed, which releases episodes on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific and once a month on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific. And we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.